This is not my normal kind of venue. Well, it is and it isn't, but you're all slightly older than my normal audience, right? Okay, so I must have been around 6 or 7 when my great-grandmother, Eleanor, presented me with a Victorian black jewellery box. Wonderful gift to have, I still have it. And inside the jewellery box were lots of little trays lined with green velvet. And I was absolutely sure that underneath the green velvet were secret messages from the past. And so I found a sharp object when my mother was not looking, presumably, and I prized open all of the little trays, taking out the green velvet to discover nothing. There was nothing there. So I was very sad, but I wrote a little note, I think in mirror writing, because I used to write a lot in mirror writing. I would send things to my family backwards. Other people do that, right? No, okay. Anyway, to transmit a message into the future. So I was clearly fascinated by the past and by handwriting from a very, very early age, and that has never gone away. Handwriting to me is something about connecting with the past. I'm a medievalist, so I work with medieval manuscripts. And when I touch a medieval manuscript and I look at the script, I am touching the touch of the scribe who touched the manuscript 1,000 years ago. But also, when I look at more recent materials, there are all kinds of connections and links that I can make with the past. So handwriting, a wonderful way to make a career, and it brought me to Stanford. So could be worse, right? Could be worse. Brought me to Stanford, and I'm directing Stanford Text Technologies. I work with medieval manuscripts. I work with students who are really interested in this too. And what I discovered in our move to America, my daughter and my husband are here almost 20 years ago when we moved across, what I found was a huge dislocation that was very unexpected to me. As a medievalist living in the East Fens in Cambridgeshire, I could look out of the window, well, I'd have to stand on the roof, but nevertheless, I could see a medieval church. I would go past hedges, and behind those hedges were hidden ruins of 1,000 years ago. And moving here, the biggest shock was not the kind of culture shock, but it was the shock of not having a kind of immediate access to things that mean so much to me. Knowing who walks in whose footsteps I walk in, the footsteps of people in the past. And I'm from Wales, so there it really matters to know kind of who you are and where you come from. It's just part of the culture. So that dislocation really made me homesick, still makes me homesick. I go back quite a lot, but I think it's what inspired me to start collecting personal archives. I have a few fragments of medieval manuscripts, but really, if I go into a shop anywhere, there are some good shopping areas for bric-a-brac kinds of junky, antique shops. If I see a bag of letters or photograph album, I feel really obliged to buy it, because to me that is a life. It is the representation of a life. These are traces of lives. And so now I have quite a big collection of various kinds of personal archives that my students and I work on. We do research on these phenomena. And let me just tell you about one of these things. So I was in San Juan Bautista. I'm sure many of you have been there. There's a wonderful, interesting mission. There's a main street. It has lots and lots of these little kind of antique shops. And I used to always take my family when they came out to stay. That was one of the places that we'd go to. And there was one shop, and it's called Red Rooster. And it was run by an extremely elderly, somewhat wheezy lady who had been there like all her career. This was her collection. It was full of interesting books and artifacts and china. And I was browsing in there at the ephemera, and I love linens. I collect linens. My husband's delighted. And I said to the lady, do you have any autograph albums? Because I thought that's a way to think about old-style social networks, right? We could do some digital and computational analyses on these social networks. And she got this cardboard box, and she plonked it on the counter, and she said, here, help yourself. And it was probably 20 or 30 autograph albums in there, so I was like rifling through them. And I plucked out one, and it's this big, and it's covered in maroon leather. And I opened it, and it was signed by Amy Sheeline. And I thought, okay, that's a start for our research. We know the name of the person. So I looked in it, and what really struck me, what really moved me and made me buy this, was a tiny little envelope in the front of the autograph album full of bits. Now, what I really think when I say about handwriting in people's lives is that I think I'm intrinsically nosy. I really love to rummage, and I like to know about people, and of course I am an historian, so I need these things in order to do my work. So I bought that album, and it cost $58.95. That is not very much money. And it's not very much money because handwriting, signatures, are what raise the price of an object. You can pay hundreds or even low thousands of dollars for objects that are filled with autographs. So it wasn't very much money because probably 4/5 of the autograph album have nothing in them. They're blank pages, and blankness equals no dollars, right? So it was $59. I took it home. My husband helped me do the research on it. And it turns out that the reason that this book was blank is because the 7-year-old girl to whom the book had been given, and there's a beautiful inscription from her mother asking her to live a long and fulfilled life and to enjoy this little autograph book. The little girl, Amy Treharne, died just a couple of years later, so she never had the chance to fill the pages of the book. And we were able to deduce quite a lot about her. Her uncle declared himself King of Mexico in 1920. Her sister went on to live a long and happy married life in San Francisco. They were a Jewish German immigrant family who had come across in the 1850s and 60s and lived in really kind of bleak places in Northeast California. So it was a really extraordinary experience. And it reminded me and reminds me that although Amy Treharne is nobody, nobody is nobody. She was an extraordinary little girl, and she continues through these traces to be an extraordinary little girl. And also maintaining my belief in this. My mum, when she died, she said, I don't want a memorial. I'm an academic. I'd like to stand up and show off. I want a huge memorial. How can somebody not want a memorial? So I gathered all of her papers, her shopping lists, her nothingy notes. I have them all, every single scrap. And every Christmas, I bring out the Christmas card from my mum. Even though she's gone. So these things matter. How much do they matter? Well, we know dramatically how much they matter from the increasing number of emergencies in the world in terms of climate collapse, the California wildfires in January. The BBC, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, London Times covered that terrible conflagration, and they interviewed people as they dealt with the loss of lives, possessions, and homes. And what the people said, and I give you two living, live examples. I wish I'd got my grandfather's watercolour. I didn't get it. It's gone. And a woman shown walking down the street in Pacific Palisades. I wish I'd got my wedding guest album where everybody signed. It's gone. So these things really matter. And when I teach this to my students, to my alumni groups, to my MLA students, they will come to me and they will say, I have my grandmother's letters in my bedside drawer. What do I do with these? Or they'll say, I have a photograph album from my great-great-grandfather who was a doctor in Alaska in 1909. What should I do with it? Do you think it means anything? And so my realization is that millions of lives, millions of papers, millions of people's traces that are present in all of our houses exist, and yet people don't know what to do with them. They don't realize that every story counts. So with Stanford Impact Labs, which has been fantastic, let me tell you, I have designed a universal archival toolkit, which is for individuals, guidance, support, information about how to deal with your materials, how to collect, how to preserve, how to curate, how to display. For local community archives, often digital, Facebook community archives, how to preserve the material that you're doing, how to screenshot and make sure that you keep a record, because the digital record is the most fragile of all, particularly when oppressive governments come in and begin to erase documents that are principally digital. So local rural libraries. They're desperately under-resourced and they have material all over the place. So the Universal Archival Toolkit is aimed at everybody to help them understand the value of the materials that they have, and also to say, don't wait until an emergency in order to think about what you would save in the case of a rapid evacuation. What would you save? How do you want to be remembered? Because the stories from the past are the power and the illumination of the future. And nobody is a nobody. So everybody's stories deserve to be heard, and I hope that my Universal Toolkit will help them, such that, as for Amy Sheeline, we're able to preserve the traces of the past. Thank you.